Hey everybody, back for another review. Before I actually begin my review, let me take a moment to preface this review with a quick history concerning me and fantasy role-playing games. Um, the very first role-playing game I ever played was actually Dungeons and Dragons, the second edition of AD&D, back in the mid-90s. And I played a good bit of second edition AD&D through high school, and then I got into it a little bit again, when third edition was released in 2000-ish, and played in a couple of campaigns with some friends, some rather long-running campaigns, and in all fairness, we did enjoy ourselves on some level. The games were fun, if for nothing more than the social interaction and the humor and all the various interesting things that went on in the game itself. But I began to find myself really distanced um, from Dungeons and Dragons itself as a game system, as a play style. A lot of the thematics or a lot of the basic preconceptions of Dungeons and Dragons kind of started to bother me, and so I decided to distance myself from it. I sold off all of my third edition D&D books and decided it wasn't something I wanted to get back into. It's, of course, D&D is a popular enough game that it's almost difficult to get away from, but I decided for myself anyway that I wasn't going to be running it anymore, that I wasn't going to be buying the books anymore, because I just wasn't interested in pursuing it. I was more interested in turning my attention toward other role-playing games. So consequentially, that left me a little uninspired in terms of the fantasy genre in general, because let's face it, Dungeons and Dragons is the most popular fantasy RPG out there. In fact, it's one you couldn't even really argue against the fact that it's the most popular RPG of any genre out there. And so when it comes to fantasy, there are some other options out there like Warhammer and a few others, but people don't tend to play those games because when they think fantasy, they think Dungeons and Dragons. So it was taking a lot of effort. It took a lot of searching for me to find something that would interest me in terms of fantasy role-playing again. But this book is what did it. Barbarians of Lemuria. This is a very excellent RPG that aims itself squarely at trying to emulate sword and sorcery fantasy. The sort of fantasy that you read of in Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian stories, Lynn Carter's Thongor series, Fritz Lieber's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse, or his Lankmar series of books. It's a much more kind of low magic, kind of down-to-earth fantasy that tends to be more about the characters themselves than it is about powerful magic and ancient gods and that sort of thing. So, in talking about Barbarians of Lemuria then, this has proven to me to be, it kind of follows my interests in fantasy a bit more, in that I like a little more low magic, kind of high adventure, stories about courage and cunning and steel and that sort of thing, which appeals to me much more than a very high magic, high fantasy setting, sort of like Dungeons and Dragons. One of the things that always bothered me about Dungeons and Dragons was the fact that magic really wasn't magic anymore. Magic was so pervasive in the setting and was so specifically detailed in the rules, and the way that the wizard and sorcerer characters can use magic. It's really just another form of science. It's because it's entirely, in my opinion only, it was entirely too dependable. There was no risk to magic, really, and so there's nothing magical about it. To me, magic isn't magical if it's entirely understood and it's entirely predictable, and it's basically it's just another resource for people to use. Well, in Sword and Sorcery, in classic Sword and Sorcery, that's not the case. Magic is much more mysterious, much more ominous, much more dangerous, even to the people casting that magic. And Barbarians of Lemuria manages to evoke that feel excellently. Generally speaking, your magicians in Sword and Sorcery tend to be the bad guys, but Barbarians of Lemuria does give options for playing those kinds of player characters because, let's face it, when people play fantasy, they want to, there are people that want to sling spells around, so they do give you the options for that. So Barbarians of Lemuria then is, like I said, aims itself at Sword and Sorcery, and it manages to pull it off in several ways. It uses a very simple core mechanic, which is you roll 2d6 and you add the dice together, and you add any points of your, you have attributes, combat skills, and non-combat skills, basically. You roll your 2d6, you add up the relevant attribute and one of your skills to try to beat a difficulty of 9. So if you roll a 9 or higher, you succeed. With the Game Master can throw in variable difficulty modifiers here and there. But that's the basic core mechanic of it. At the center of the game, it uses a very brilliant idea called careers. And careers are basically skill packages, to put them in its simplest form. Rather than create a big list of every imaginable skill that a character might have or want and have to individually assign points to those skills, Barbarians takes a more boiled down approach by assigning characters careers. And a career is a way to describe a package of skills that a character has. So, for example, you have a career, and there are 26 careers that are in the core book. You have the career like Assassin. And Assassin, if your character has the Assassin career, it's assumed that you know assassin-y type skills. So you know how to sneak, you know how to lay ambushes, you know how to use poisons, maybe you know how to operate traps, or set and detect traps, and that sort of thing. So it's a really quick way to judge what your character is and isn't skilled at without having, like I said, to have a big old list of skills. What's cool about Barbarians is that it sets up the beginning of the game to assume that your characters are already well-traveled and well-experienced adventurers. So you start the game with 4 careers. You get to pick 4 careers and assign them to your character, and then you have points to assign to these careers to determine your skills. So you're not playing the first level D&D adventurers here. These characters are supposed to already be, big, significant, competent people with a wide variety of skills and talents. It is despite the fact that it's only about 100 pages long, it is a full-blooded RPG in the fact that, not only do you have your core mechanics, but there's options, or rather, there's systems in here for assigning merits and flaws to your characters. There are rules for hero points, which do a lot of the things that hero points or drama points or action points do in other role-playing games, but they work very well. There are rules for advancement. Unlike a lot of kind of independent role-playing games or shorter or rules-light role-playing games that don't necessarily include options for advancing your characters, there are options in here. So your characters can get better at their attributes and their skills. They can learn new careers and skills. They can, learn, they can pick up and drop merits and flaws and that sort of thing. So it is fully capable and full-blooded and a rather robust RPG for the fact that you're getting, that it's only 100 pages long. This, by the way, is available for, the PDF version of the game is available for $12 on drivethrurpg.com or rpgnow.com. So it's actually quite an excellent value for what you're getting. I believe there's a print version available as well, where you can just order the pre-printed version, and they'll ship it to you. I don't know the cost for that exactly. But what I did for mine was, I bought the PDF version of the game, and I read it, and I liked it so much that I wanted to have a hard copy that I could take to my game table. So I printed it out. I took it to my local FedEx office, and I had them do the nice coil binding for me. So that's how I put this little package together. Let me be right back with my second part, and I will tell you a bit more.